how can I break through a weight loss stall?
So this specific member is looking to lose 5 to 7 more pounds and has been struggling with the plateau for about 10 days. So before I answer this question, drop in the comments what suggestions you would give, this is a female, what suggestions you would give this female in order to get through a weight loss plateau on the keto diet. And then we'll circle back around and talk about those extra tips as well. But I like to think, especially as women, men too, I like to think about weight loss as a hormone balance goal. So instead of focusing on weight loss activities and hyper-focusing on the scale and letting a plateau stress us out, think about how can I better balance my hormones. So one thing is movement. It's really important we move our bodies. It's important that the blood is flowing, that our lymphatic system is draining, that we're getting all the nutrients and micronutrients to our cells and our organs so that they work properly. You're distracted.
Sorry. Yeah.
So movement, strength training. It's important at any age to incorporate a couple days a week of strength training into your fitness plan. And that doesn't have to look like his version of strength training where I walk in and he's lifting, I don't even, like more than I weigh up over his head. That can look like yoga. It can look like Pilates, or maybe you do use dumbbells or some kind of weighted strength training. But it's important to tone our muscles because there's a lot of cellular benefits. Anything to say on that from a science perspective before I move on?
You got me off guard.
No, I didn't. You got distracted with the tech. Okay.
Yeah.
We can come back to that. So hydration. I had noticed the past 3 weeks that I used to drink 3 of these, the equivalent, or 3 of these a day, and I had dropped down to 1. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So I would end the day just with a really dry mouth. I would be waking up in the middle of the night thirsty, waking up in the morning thirsty. So making sure that you're hydrating, but not just straight water. So especially on a keto diet, it's really important to have balanced electrolytes. So I'm doing that in this drink with some organic lemon juice and my favorite electrolyte formula, which is Keto Chow's electrolyte drops. There's a number of different ways, different brands to get on the market. Keto Chow you can order online. So just making sure that you're getting enough hydration, and that especially becomes important as we head into the heat. Like
yes.
the temperature increases, you start sweating, you're losing water, so you want to make sure that you're replacing the water you're losing. So on days when Jeremy does an extra intense workout or he spends extra time in the sauna, you've got to make sure that you're replenishing those liquids. So don't forget about hydration.
So those are all water-soluble minerals, and they will flush out of your body. Basically, what you don't need will get flushed out. But we will consume that a lot more rapidly as it gets warmer and the more active we are. Today I went for a 2.5 mile run, and we had been out walking, and it was the first time out in the sun, and I could just kind of feel that drag and drain of needing more electrolytes. So I also have some of the electrolytes in my drink.
So magnesium is another one to really consider supplementing with right now, because in times of higher stress, we just burn through magnesium like crazy. So my naturopath says, treat acute symptoms acutely. So if you're feeling fatigued, you're feeling drained, you've got to continue to act to try to improve the symptoms instead of thinking it's just a one-time action you're going to take. So what else? Sleep quality. Sleep quality is really critical to weight loss. I don't know if you've seen the studies, but just a couple hours, like shy of so 7 to 9 hours, optimal sleep. But if you get poor quality sleep, if you're shy a few hours of sleep, maybe you don't get much deep sleep, that can impact you as much as being drunk during the day.
Yeah, and there's no really, this idea of catching up on sleep is kind of poppycock. You can't really do it. That's not how the body works. It's not how the system works. There's a process that happens every night where your brain actually shrinks. And that happens during deep sleep, and it's this glymphatic. So that we talked about the lymphatic system, but in the brain there's also a glymphatic system, and there's glymphatic fluids in there, and the brain shrinks and kind of squeezes and kind of excises some of that fluid to get things out that don't need to be in there. And if you're not getting enough deep sleep, then you are missing out on some of that glymphatic, like rinsing, I'll call it. And that alone can have profound effects on the next day and your long-term health.
It means your energy's lower, you tend to snack more, have more cravings. They've proven that your response time, like if you run into a situation in traffic, like your response time is slower, you make more mistakes. So there's a big impact. Even if we don't think we feel sleep deprived, it's still happening. We just aren't so aware of it. The next thing is to look at your food quality. So the way that I do this is I go back to tracking. You guys know that I love Chronometer for tracking my macros. So I'll log my food 2 or 3 days, and this is what I do with clients and our members. We log food for 2 or 3 days, and then we ask, okay, what's the pattern here? Have I let a lot of sugar substitutes sneak in? Do I need to maybe omit sugar substitutes for a few weeks? Have I maybe I'm eating like Jeremy does. I walk downstairs and I see the bag of macadamia nuts back on his desk. So did you set something on your desk and you don't even realize, right? You're doing it kind of subconsciously. You don't even realize you're eating it.
I like to think if anybody watches a TV show called Brooklyn Nine-Nine, there's Terry. Terry is the police sergeant there, and he's in charge of all the detectives, and he's super buff. And one day Boyle comes and gives him cacao nibs. He's like, they're cacao nibs. They're packed with antioxidants. They're good for you. And he ends up eating like 4 huge bags of cacao nibs and puts on a bunch of weight. And he's like, every time I close a case, I get a nib. And he's like treating himself every time something goes right during the day. And that's kind of how I've been feeling. Like every time I'm like, oh, I read that email. Time for a macadamia nut. Yay.
So, but you don't even know you're doing it. And so that's where the power of logging your food, because all of a sudden you've got to write it down. So all of a sudden your mind is paying attention to it. So it's not even always looking at what you're eating. It's catching the subconscious actions you're taking that you didn't even know were happening in your routine. Because, it's fact that all of our routines have changed in some way or another. Whether it's how much news we're reading, or having teens back in the house who had gone off to college, or having young kids at home and having to homeschool, everybody's routines changed, and that's when we start, our subconscious kind of takes over. And so some of those behaviors can sneak in on us, and we aren't even aware of them.
So a little conversation around this topic. Sleep apnea affects weight loss even if treated. Sleep apnea is that thing where you essentially stop breathing in the middle of the night, and they say you have a sleep disorder if that happens at a certain rate every hour or every minute or something like that. But yeah, absolutely. It disrupts your sleep. It keeps you from getting into deep sleep. It keeps you from getting good REM sleep. And all of that adds up over time to a sleep deficit and can impact your health. I mean, the number one thing, if we were going to try and fix, Jane Doe or John Doe, we would not necessarily ask what they're eating. We would ask, how are you sleeping? That would be one of the very first questions we would ask. How are you sleeping? What is your routine?
And movement. And about movement, because it's very easy, I think, especially right now, to just go, well, I'm not going to go out. Because it feels like an uncertain environment. But, we went out today and people are laughing and everybody's waving, right? Everybody crosses the street, make sure that there's enough distance, but everybody's just so happy to see other people. And, we heard side conversations going on. Oh, people, yay! Because we're starting to feel isolated. We're starting to feel the stress of being disconnected, because we are, as human beings, we were designed for connection. right? We were,
Yes.
you know, so especially if you're living alone, movement, if you can get outside and go for a walk and see other human beings, that is going to help you feel more connected. Smile at everybody, say hello, you know, laugh as you do your 6 feet apart, you know, safety for everybody, you know, make a joke, but laugh and say hi, because that's really, really good for your mental health. And that's the last piece of this, is stress. What is your stress situation looking like right now? And so these are ways you can, right? Because cortisol goes up, and
well, cortisol is supposed to be down. Like, cortisol is supposed to rise in the morning to get you awake, and it's supposed to level off and fall off at the end of the day, and, you know, be at low levels before you go to sleep. Well, we're in this chronic panic state where cortisol levels are always high, and we can't get out of fight or flight. And so we're in this chronically inflamed state because of too high levels of cortisol. And that just leads to, you know, weight gain, and it's just kind of a
YouTube is allowing us
cascade.
to say COVID now, by the way.
Okay.